Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemophilepod.com. On New York's Upper West Side, Academy Award-nominated actress Carol Kane lives with her 98-year-old mother, Joy, an active music teacher, former dancer, and lifelong Francophile. In this intimate short verite documentary shot on 16mm film, the filmmaking team behind Between the Temples visit Carol and Joy in their home for an afternoon of music and friends and stories, and a lifetime in a day. This is just such a warm-hearted, beautifully done film. You feel like you're in one of the legendary salons from Paris. It's just really, really cool. We're joined today by the director of Carol and Joy, Nathan Silver. Nathan, welcome to Cinemophile.
Thank you so much.
You know, you had me at hello in this one. I just getting to know Joy was just such a it was a joy. It was really so engaging, intelligent, insightful, and just the two of you talking back and forth across this almost 40-minute short doc is beautiful. Tell me a little bit about what spurred this. What brought you to this apartment?
Sure. So I shot a movie with Carol called Between the Temples, and throughout the whole production, she would talk about her mom in the most like glowing terms, and she would call or check in on her regularly because they, as we find out in this film, they live together in the same apartment. And so I got a bit like I got to know her through hearing about her at that time, and then our hair and makeup artist Emily Schubert became very close with Carol over the course of Between the Temples, and she ended up starting to take voice lessons with Joy. So I heard about Joy through her. And then I eventually got to meet Joy when I was doing some press with Carol. She brought me over to her apartment that she keeps above, where she doesn't stay, but she has guests there and does interviews there. And so I went to that apartment, did an interview with her, and then she took me downstairs afterwards to meet her mom. And I walked into this apartment. They served me coffee, tea, whatnot, and Joy just started telling stories and playing piano. Neighbors came in and sang with her, played piano alongside her. And so I felt like I'd entered into this world that I thought didn't exist in New York, like this thing that had disappeared, and it was pretty phenomenal. So after I left that apartment, I texted my co-writer from Between the Temples, Chris Wells, and I described it to him, and he said we need to make this into a film. And then we kind of took it from there. It just seemed to make sense that we would, film Carol and Joy. And Carol was immediately receptive, and Emily Schubert helped, Joy get on board as well. And it was just a lovely effort that seemed to, it was a bridge from Between the Temples to this film, I guess you could say.
Just as you described it, you see over the course of the time that we're with her in this afternoon, reminds me, although I can't really speak of any experience, of kind of a salon of sorts that we would have experienced.
Exactly.
Go
Yes,
ahead.
that's exactly how I felt and how I described it afterwards. It felt like a salon, and I was like, "What? This is crazy." And it's also just a 98-year-old woman hosting it, so that makes it even more exceptional. The fact that it exists and it exists in such a way.
I've always been jealous, envious of the people who, during the period of time in New York and Paris, you read about these places where people would gather just to kind of randomly and happenstance, and suddenly it would turn into something pretty special. And that's how this feels. Let's talk about Joy. And just you mentioned she's 98 years old during the filming of this, and tell us a little bit about her background. I mentioned in the introduction she's a Francophile, but there's a lot more here.
Absolutely. She grew up as a dancer, then she turned to piano. And I mean, she lived as she describes it, this very rigid life in America that she had a husband and two kids, and then ended up basically embrace. So she felt like she was a housewife for the first part of life. And then she went to Paris at the age of 55 and started over again and became this, renowned piano teacher. And so, and became like accepted the life of an artist. She stayed in this very cheap hotel here and kind of just, she describes it as like this bohemian lifestyle. And I think, it's pretty exceptional that she just was able to switch lanes at that time in life and make it work. And so on top of everything else, it's the life of someone who, I think she struggled with the idea that her life was about, her husband and family, and she knew she was always an artist, but I don't think she could fully embrace that fact because of, outside factors, such as life. But the fact that she was able to turn it around is what this movie is, and it's what Carol constantly. I heard her describe, the courage of her mother to multiple people, and then to actually be able to hear it in, something else.
And that's another thing about this. There's a certain, and correct me if I'm wrong or didn't see it the same way that you intended, but it felt like her level of comfort in a matter of a few, it seemed to gain, she seemed to gain confidence as the afternoon went on in
Yes.
terms of in
Yep.
terms of her ability to speak, because she had suffered a stroke when she was 92. Do I have that right? Something like that?
Yes, I can't remember the exact age, but around there.
Yeah.
I think in her early 90s.
As the afternoon goes on, you can see her gain confidence, and she was more relaxed, and the interactions were more spirited. That's another great thing about watching the film. It feels so organic. I don't know if that's the right word, but this film just feels so
Yeah.
organic. Go ahead.
I wanted it to feel like you were walking into the apartment and just, you were a guest who was being invited in, and, you would experience the story, music, and what it's like to enter in that space. And so I wanted, everything about the film was just accommodating them and making them feel like themselves, rather. So it didn't feel like a mechanical production. It felt like just, friends. She almost looked at the crew as other people who would be at the salon, who would be in this
Yeah.
space, and she was telling stories, which I think is very fitting and how we needed it to be.
Just want to quickly remind our listeners we're speaking with Nathan Silver. The film is called Carol and Joy, and we're talking about the Kanes. Carol Kane, we know from so many wonderful films, her own personality, and maybe I'm extrapolating a little more than I should, but you can see joy in Carol in this
Oh yeah,
film.
definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you see they're both consummate artists. And I think, obviously they're different. Joy is a musician, former dancer, but Carol is an actor, and there's so much overlap with how they go about life. And, they're both extremely sharp, vulnerable, wonderful souls. And I think that, there's obviously no Carol without Joy. And the fact that Carol devotes her life to her mother, now that she takes care of her, is so moving for me.
The film, in many ways, reflects you in that space as well. Just the idea
Yes.
that things were happening, people were coming in, as you said earlier, not expecting. And I also love that it's just such a relaxed film. I love the fact that you kept in some of the film running out.
Yeah, I mean, because we shot on film and we knew we needed to, in order to capture Joy's spirit, because she's analog, not digital, like this. It's her sensibility. So it was limiting in this way that, it's you only have so many minutes on a roll of film, and she would keep speaking. So we would sometimes have her repeat what she was saying so we could, on a new roll of film and to lead us into where she was going. But in the edit, realized that we could use John McGarry, our editor, realized that we could use rollouts to structure the movie as a rhythmic structure to the movie. And so that was very eye-opening in the first assembly, and I immediately loved that because I was like, oh, of course. And it feels like she can't be contained by film, or she can't be contained by just by the machine. So she'll keep on telling her story. She lives outside of this machine, which I thought was very, very lovely. And
Yeah.
and then we had like a few structuring devices, but the way we kept it lively, I think, is we used the rollouts, and then we used the people entering, so they would knock at the door with this particular knocker that they have. So we use those two devices to kind of contain it, but the life then flows throughout the rest of it. It can't really be contained.
I just thoroughly enjoyed it. It really is a fun watch. By the way, and you have wonderful partners in all of this. Sean Price Williams, who, in my
Yeah,
mind, is chronicled independent films in his way, in his travels, in so many different ways. Great to see his name anytime. Um,
absolutely. I love Sean. I've known him
oh,
for, I think I met him in like 2005 or so. We've known each other for a while.
his aesthetic, his skill set is so. Yeah, it's just great. It's great to see him anytime, anywhere. Oh, so well, congratulations on this. I want to let people know this is a short documentary film. It's going to be released. How would people see this when it's
So it's streaming on Criterion Channel.
Criterion? Okay, the place to go to see this
Great.
in there. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, I want to thank our guest today, the director of this wonderful short documentary called Carol and Joy. An honor to have back on the program, Nathan Silver. Thank you so very much for your time today, Nathan.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.